Welcome back to Next Chapter. We just finished reading The Lost Metal, which of course is the last book in Mistborn Era 2, and we are so excited to talk about it. This is like the Sanderlanche book with its own Sanderlanche, and there are so many things that I have been waiting to discuss with you when we finish the book.
What a way to describe it too. I love this whole book, and I realized going through this whole series from the beginning, after having read this whole thing, made me realize why I liked Wayne so much from the beginning of these books. I'm like, don't you just love the Wayne quotes and everything? It's this last book that does it for you.
And you were prepping for that this whole time. You're like, we need to start keeping track of our favorite Wayne quotes and everything. I'm like, okay,
and then I realized when I went back to his other books, I'm like, their Wayne quotes aren't actually as good in the beginning until they get to this last book. This last book, he is honed in.
They put a lot more focus on them too. Like even Wax is just keeping track of the quotes that he has. Is pretty fantastic. So,
I loved it. So great story.
We got to start right at the beginning.
Jump right in. It's a Wayne moment to begin with. Probably one of the more powerful scenes I've read from any Sanderson book, to be honest.
Wow.
It is a big statement to make. And it is something that felt so powerful to me that I loved it so much that just shows the excellence of Brandon Sanderson's writing skill and storytelling and character building all in just one small chapter. I was able to, as soon as I finished listening to this chapter, my wife has not read any of Mistborn Era 2.
Wow.
She's read Mistborn Era 1.
Has she listened to the podcast episodes, even though she hasn't read the books?
Not the ones for the books that she hasn't read. Like
spoilers.
She's a spoiler
we have
thing.
spoilers.
Yeah, it's a spoiler thing. But for this one, I'm like, okay, babe, you do not have to have had to have read anything else to understand this. Just listen to this chapter. And it just hits powerfully. She enjoyed it, and I felt comfortable sharing it with her because it's just so powerful. And the way that it ends is just heartbreaking. But anyways, I want to hear your thoughts on it and everything. That's why I think it's just one of the best chapters that he's ever written.
On the story his mom tells?
The story that his mom tells, the whole way that it begins and ends, just learning about just Wayne and all of his, like, the deepness of his character and everything behind him and his mother and the storytelling. It's just beautiful.
The storytelling is excellent, and I think they did a fantastic job of overlaying that story across the entire book. So it's like basically told you the entire story of the Lost Metal in the first chapter, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I really liked it specifically is because Wayne is much more real of a character than I think we thought. Right at the beginning, first 3 books in the series, you really start to think he's like the comic relief. He's kind of just fun. He's in there to just, be funny, basically indestructible. He's just, a good time. But I really think in this last book, you discover a lot more of like his realistic intentions, why he's so oftentimes like crass, or he's just a little bit too much levity in the situation. But I think that's all very intentional and a cause of difficulties in his childhood, issues and problems that he had to deal with. And like this concept, he has this self-limiting belief that he deals with the entire time. I even noted that right at the beginning. I'm like, this is like a classic case of self-limiting beliefs, and I'll talk more about it specifically when we get there. I know there's a lot to talk about in this podcast, but there's a fight scene where he's fighting someone who's very similar to himself, and he can't make any ground, and then the hero, Wax, appears. He just shows up, and then Wayne wins his fight.
No way.
The next 10 seconds, a couple of sentences.
Very astute to pull that out.
Oh yeah, it was something that I wanted to note because he's really like, oh, I can't do this. This external third party is here. Now I can succeed.
Yeah.
Like that. It's almost like the Dumbo and the Feather, or just any sort of tale similar to that, where they seek for external validation of themselves because they can't find it inside.
Yeah.
I like the concept of like Dumbo could always fly, but he didn't really need the feather. Same thing with Wayne. He didn't really need Wax to be there to be successful and to be a hero. He just needed to believe more in himself and forgive himself, all those things.
Dude, that is really cool. I really like that comparison. I love this opening scene. I come away from this, like the whole story with like Wayne basically building the story himself. And the like, Ma, that's swearing. Like, if you say it in a story, it ain't, or whatever it is. I'm like, what? How hilarious! All of it's so good. But then you just see how his mom just treats him so well, even though he already has problems from the beginning with pickpocketing and stealing and making mistakes and making wrong choices. But his mom loves him so much,
and she's trying so hard.
She's trying so hard. It is heartbreaking at the end of that like chapter. Just be like, oh my gosh, like Wayne needs his mom, and she just passed. Like that is just heartbreaking.
Pretty too. That's
finish.
the last story she told him. Yeah, and you learn that that's why he trades for everything.
Yeah.
She's like, you can't steal stuff. He's like, well, what if I trade? I love that. You're like, oh, okay, yep, it makes sense now.
Yep. Yeah. It's just a powerful moment overall.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorite chapters that he's ever written. Which it's crazy because
That's
I
saying
will
a lot.
spoiler
There are
alert.
some-
Yeah, it's not my favorite book that he's ever written. Although it's like I love it. I feel like my favorite books are definitely Way of Kings and everything, but this chapter is still one of the top chapters.
I love that there are areas in every book that you can tie and just be like, that was a legendary chapter or a legendary just piece of this book or piece of this world that's being built. It all has that capability, and that's why I love reading Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a blast. It is. And we will get to our ratings at the very end of this podcast. We want to rate the book on our typical next chapter scale of 1 to 10. So definitely stay tuned for the end of the video for that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I haven't even mentioned that. But if you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. You need to subscribe.
Subscribe. Catch more of our Sanderson content. There will be lots and lots more to come.
And all of this in preparation for the Big Dragon Steel launch event in December and anything exciting that he decides to launch along the way. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's great. So going on from there. So what did you think with we meet? It jumps right back into the story with Wayne and Marcy
Yep.
going through the tunnels and underground, the sewers, and then eventually, after a long story, they're able to find Trellium. They're able to find the spike full of Trellium, and they start using it for experimentation.
I did start, I think, so in general, I'm a huge fan of the book and all that stuff. I feel like start to feel a little repetitive with, like, there's a lot of detective, find the layer, beat the bad guys, discover one new piece of information.
Yep.
That model, I think, is played out 3, 4, 5 times in the last couple of books.
Yep.
So I think there was a point where I start to get confused and like, okay, which layer are we at now? Which bad guy is the leader of this place? And like, what did we need to learn from this one? It does feel a little repetitive. I think that's one thing where it's like, I know they're constables, I know this, but let's go right back to like the first book or maybe the second book where they say things. There was the mayor's speech, and that was an interesting nuance to like, how do you protect the mayor in a big area? Like all these things. It wasn't go underground, find the bad guys, beat the bad guys, learn something. I feel like that exact pattern happened too many times for me.
In this book specifically.
In this book and the last book, it just kind of continues. I know we read them very, very quickly in a couple of months, so it all kind of blends for me.
Yeah, I will say that this book starts very similar to the last book. Because they both they find that result, but they also are coming back to Wax's mansion, meeting with the Khandra, talking about, well, this is the next mission that we have to go on and things like that. So it does feel very
That's
similar.
how it goes. That's the standard. That's the standard pattern we should expect.
Yeah. But this part was interesting because, again, brings into more Cosmere building knowledge.
Yep.
And we realize that harmony is a combination of both ruin and preservation. And so the idea is, well, could you split the metal that he has made, harmonium? And I had some thoughts about this. Maybe the commenters will be able to answer this for me. But
they're the best.
Would any visiting god to the world of Scadrial get their own metal on Scadrial? It sounds like there's Trellium because autonomy comes and starts invading Scadrial. There's harmonium because harmony.
But did Trellium exist on Scadrial before autonomy came, and it was just turned into something like the elements? Did the elements already exist, or did it come from the god?
I would guess that it had to have come from the god, right? Because there's ruins metal, and then there is preservation's metal.
Yeah.
And those are directly related to them. But all the other metals are not related to gods. They're not god metals, is what they call them.
Okay. So I guess that does make more sense then.
Yeah.
Interesting that, okay, so ruin and preservation, I guess it's a spoiler, but if you're already in Mistborn Era 2, you kind of already spoiled it for yourself. This is from Mistborn Era 1.
Yeah.
But it used to be 2 separate metals, atium and, I keep forgetting, lerasium.
Yep, lerasium.
And those two were completely separate, did separate things and all that stuff.
Yep.
But now we have
atium lets you
metal.
see the future.
Yeah.
See possibilities in the future. Lerasium turned you into a Mistborn.
Correct. And now we have one metal, and if you try to divide it again, it explodes.
Yes. Well,
that's pretty weird.
Why is that weird?
Because I just don't understand why the metal had to change.
Had to change?
Yeah.
Like, become harmonium?
Well, like become harmonium, but also become something completely different. Like the fact that the harmonium itself has so many like different capabilities.
Oh, yeah.
That just seems weird to me. There's still two shards, ruin and preservation, even though they're held by the same person.
Yeah.
That doesn't change the shards themselves, does it?
No, yeah, I think I see what you mean. Just like, I don't know. I don't know what like harmonium would do if you burnt harmonium. Like
Exactly. They don't
like,
tell
who
us.
knows? I know. Well, it's because there's no Mistborn like to be able to figure that out. Who
Oh,
knows
that's
who
true.
can burn harmonium?
Well, anyone can burn Lerasium.
Yes.
You don't have to be a Mistborn.
You're right. Has anybody tried? Well, the problem is you can't eat it because you get put liquid on it and it explodes.
That is probably why.
They would explode. It's like drinking Diet Coke and Mentos at the same time. Don't do it.
Bad choice.
You'll turn into
a balloon.
a balloon.
But okay, so that actually does help a lot. It helps me understand why that hasn't been discovered, like why people haven't burned it.
Yeah, but the reason why they were trying to split it is so they could get those two separate metals and everything.
Because they're incredibly valuable
And the reason
metals.
why I think it makes sense that it would explode, that those like metals like are they're opposites. Like of course it's going to be extremely reactive to each other. Like preservation, preservation, ruin are like always at odds. It makes sense that if you combine those two into a metal, it would be something that's completely like unstable.
Interesting. Yep, I can see it. And it becomes a big part of this book, especially near the end, and we'll get there. But first, we talked about the fact that things have changed a lot for our main characters. Wax, specifically, is now married with kids, which changes things slightly. And one of the things that I thought and I wanted to call out is he does mention he is worried about becoming outnumbered by 3 kids. And I'm like, I hear you, man.
Yeah, I know.
We're expecting our third, my wife and I, and I don't know, man. I feel the exact same way. I'm with you, Wax.
Yeah, I know,
Because I'm
man.
like, outnumbered sounds tough.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Would not be easy. Yeah, I love the whole character it builds with like his son and like his relationship with him, and like being a parent and seeing that relationship that he's got with his son is just like, I don't know. It resonates a bit more since the first time that I've read this book.
Yep.
And was able to.
It is cool. It's cool to have those little tidbits that you can, I guess, just resonate with a little bit more. But I think it's fun.
Yeah. When I did read that part though, I was like, oh no. So brutal, Sanderson. You are clearly setting us up for Wax to die after he's got a son that will
Now that he has a
continue
whole
on.
family.
And I'm like, that's mean. Like, but luckily he didn't. But I was just like, I was ready for it.
That would have been maybe too much for me.
I know. I was like,
to take out the dad, but no, they did a really good job. I really liked it. I wanted to call it out though. He has a family now.
I love it. Did you predict what had happened during the explosion of the two metals when they were trying to split it?
No, I did not. Not even a little bit.
That was the one thing I like when I was reading this book. I kind of predicted it. Like they talked about like going in there and like all the gases and like about breathing things in, and they're like, oh, like we just found the harmonium like just stuck against like the back of the study like tent or not tent but like
The
wall.
lab?
The lab wall. I don't even know, but anyways, I just thought that was fascinating. But I'm like, there has to be like maybe he like breathed it in. They were talking about how it was black and stuff. I'm like, this is too much description for this to not be anything.
For not to be super
nothing
important.
happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do they know that it did not like work? Like, I don't know. I was just so surprised that it didn't
That's
go
it.
into
So
a
you
farther-
predicted it. You knew that there was something going on there.
I felt like there was something going on. I don't think I like quite put it together when I was first reading the book, but I felt something there.
There was a thread to pull on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
for
that's it. I noticed that sometimes too in little areas. I'm like, we're foreshadowing something here.
Yeah, this is a little fishy.
I feel it. It's coming. And then you'll get the reveal and be like, yep, there was something there. I love that. Okay. So the quest continues. And speaking of quests, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether this book, and the first 3, if you haven't caught the rest of the episodes of this podcast, which you should, go back and watch those. You have said that there is a movie akin to each of these
Wow,
books.
you ready for this?
I want to know.
Okay,
because we're
well,
starting the quest.
I feel like I've nailed it for all
you
the other
you
ones.
have. The first one.
Well, the first one is very much Sherlock Holmes and Batman combined. You get very much those vibes. Second one, very much an Angels and Demons vibe. I haven't read the Da Vinci Code or anything like that. So maybe it gives a vibe of that too. But I read Angels and Demons, very much that vibe. Third one, Indiana Jones, very much go on adventure and everything. This last one, this one wasn't as clear to me as the other ones.
That means it's gonna be good.
It felt like more of an original story to me, but there were some things that were very movie-like. I'm like, I've totally seen this before, and I wonder if he'd pulled it from that. But this felt like, to me, an episode of like 24, like how it is a gigantic terrorist attack where they're trying to uncover and solve it, and then they finish solving one thing, but that just leads to, oh no, it's just a bigger scheme on top of that, which happens in every single season of 24.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, a combination with, this is the bigger part, the movie The Village. Have you ever seen The Village?
No.
The Village is an M. Night Shyamalan movie where, this is a massive spoiler for that movie, so I will not like go into it much, but there's a village of people who are living in their own community and everything, and they're kind of separated from society. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and there are totally The Village vibes, especially with like the creatures coming in to like freak everyone out and everything and just keep them oppressed in a way.
Interesting.
It is very, very much The Village from that whole scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
That scene at the end.
Yeah. So
very interesting. I thought, and I don't get credit for this, unfortunately, because a commenter clued me into this one. But as I read it, I was like, you know what? I think they nailed it with the Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Because you go through and you're like, you don't see the hidden stuff until it gets revealed. And then you kind of see almost like flashbacks of like this, all led to this moment. I think especially at the end when things are wrapping up and like, oh, but we had this backup plan and that's why we were here. And then Wax is putting all the clues together. I think that's totally like an Ethan Hunt type of thing to do. I think that's
cool.
very Mission Impossible. So,
dude, that's awesome. I have not seen enough Mission Impossible to be able to like put my finger on that one. I saw the comment, but like I'm grateful that
I've seen all the new ones. I've seen all the old series that they created long before Tom Cruise was involved.
Yeah, it's great. Very Mission Impossible. Yeah, it's when that's what I was trying to get to with the 24. It's very much just a like international like crime or like just thriller of it's just interesting.
It's intense. Yeah, the whole time, especially the second half of this book is one battle, I think. It's just from one to the next, and it's crazy.
It keeps on going and going and going.
Yeah, they do a good job of that, though.
And they do, and they have a lot of cutscenes. They're jumping back and forth between things, which you typically do not like.
I typically do not.
But how did they do it here?
It threw me off. I feel like I paid so much less attention to Marcy's scenes.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, oh, wait, where are we now? Okay, we're with Marcy. She's talking to somebody. Who the heck is Twin Souls? So like I had to do a little bit of trying to remember things.
Okay, but tell me this. Were you not fascinated by that whole scene with Marcy? Like I thought
the only reason that I was
so
fascinated by her scenes in general is because of all the hype behind the Ghost Bloods. And I think that's been something that I've really tried to clue into a lot more.
So you only liked it for the Ghost Blood thing. You weren't looking for the connections or like, have I seen these characters before? Or
like
anything
connections
like that?
to the Cosmere? Or
yeah, like
to
Cosmere connections. Like it felt like clear Cosmere connections during all of those scenes.
Oh yeah, I think especially because we just read Emperor's Soul, so I like the stamping and all that stuff.
See how I did that there?
Yeah, it's pretty sneaky.
Got him to read that before this. Like had to sneak that in there.
I think that was a brilliant move because that would have made no sense to me. But like I knew everything about like how the stamps work and why she has like this one stamp. She's like, oh, you got to keep me grounded. If I use this stamp, I'm gonna forget everything. It's gonna change my whole past.
Yep,
that is cool. Yeah, that is really cool. That scene in general just was awesome.
Yeah, totally. And that whole scene too. What I liked the little reference there that her name is Moonlight. Mm-hmm. I did not know in this world that there is no moon over Scadrial.
Really?
Yeah, she says it just like briefly. She's
I totally missed that.
Yeah, Marcy is talking to her, and she's like, my name is Moonlight, and she's like, it's a word you've never heard before, like because you don't have any moons or whatever.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what does that do to like? There's no like waves and current there's no waves in the water in the oceans and things like that because that's not being pulled by the moon. I don't know. It would just change your world. Like it would be crazy. I can't imagine that kind of thing.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And like the blackness of the mists and stuff makes more sense.
Oh yeah, true. It's just always dark. All the time.
Yeah,
crazy.
Night is a much more eerie situation.
Yeah. So, anyways, I thought that was really cool. Side note. But yeah. So, what else did you catch from that whole meeting with Marcy and the Ghost Bloods? Like,
at first, I will say the whole Twin Souls thing. I was like, this has to be related to other worlds we've seen and how like just being able to connect to two different places with twin souls. Why would you be called that if it wasn't related to something? I couldn't figure it out. Maybe it's beyond me, but
I'll tell you that we have not read Twin Souls World yet.
Okay, because I was
just so
trying,
you know, yeah.
I was like, it just doesn't fit any of the existing like paradigms or worlds or magic systems that we know of yet. But I'm like, I know it's relevant. Like that's such a clear.
Yep.
It's killing me.
There are some books.
Where is it? What is it in? What do I need to read?
There is a book that you have not read yet.
Which one?
It is.
Is it over here?
Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Oh, using the bookshelf.
Yeah, I know. It starts touching on the Aethers, I think they call it, in there. I still don't think he's from that world, though. I think that he's from another world.
He does mention that, though.
Yeah, but
Aether.
But yeah, they talk a lot about the Aethers in that book as well. So you'll learn some more about it once we hit Tress.
I will. Oh, okay. It's on the list. There are so many things on the list. I am very excited, though.
I know. You'll have to subscribe and catch Jaden's reaction when we read Tress.
The connections are just getting crazier and crazier. Speaking of connections, though, we talked about Twin Souls. Moonlight, when she transforms, blew my mind completely.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? She turned into a god.
I know.
And
this is hilarious.
She starts drawing on the floor and stuff. She draws on the wall, and now the wall's protected. What does that even mean?
Also hilarious because you've not read Elantris yet. So that is all Elantris world right there.
It's just so confusing.
I really debated on having you read Elantris before this book. But in reality...
Are they all so full of themselves like she is? The god that's like, I'm the best in the world.
I think they
totally
are,
awesome.
actually. Yeah, it's really funny. That's what makes that whole scene really funny. It's just like... But I really wanted to read Elantris with you before like we got to these books. But like we will get there. It's just, I've said it before, it's a good book. But the guy who reads the audio for that book just kills me. Some of the characters that he does make them so annoying. Like... I don't know. It really bothered me. We'll get there and you'll enjoy it, but you'll pick up a lot more once you've like read that part.
Okay. Yeah. So much to read. So much to read. And one of the things about that I kept writing down over and over again. I had like 3 notes about this. Like the Ghost Bloods, who are these people? You mentioned one time we were reading a different book. We're like, the guy with the mask. Did you notice? Like he had a mask on. He didn't take it off. That's clearly like this. This isn't like, okay, yes. No way I would have noticed that. So the connections, I'm trying to pay more attention, but it's also there's always in the back of my mind, it's like it's probably a book you haven't read yet. So there's always a part of me that's thinking I'm missing.
It's crazy because you're so close though. Like you've only got a couple more books until like you've connected all of them. I guess a few if we're gonna throw in Tress and everything, but Tress isn't one of like the main like core books and everything.
There's a lot. There's a lot there, and there's other books and series we want to read. I think. After this book, aren't we venturing away from Sanderson for a second?
Yeah, you were gonna take a break and read some Patrick Rothfuss.
Before, I was gonna let people guess.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna let people guess what we were reading next.
Well, you guess which book we're gonna read of his.
Okay, yeah. So drop in the comments.
I think there's like one book that's
but maybe they will guess it wrong, or maybe they will guess it right, and we will give the heart to their comment, or the thumbs up.
We will give it to no one else.
If you guess what book we're reading next, so that'll be the challenge in the comment section.
Yeah, it'll be great. I gave it away.
You did give it away. Next time we'll do a challenge.
We will, but it'll be great. So, anyways, Kate, there's some other people that we meet in that conversation, though, as well, when she goes to the hideout. It's like the biggest one, Jaden.
Kelsey, or are we
yes.
Like, we didn't meet him. Like, I met him a really long time ago.
Well, we meet him, like, in the book. Like, again, like, she meets him. Like,
yeah. She meets him, and she's kind of blown away by him in general. I just think he's such a good character.
I know.
In general, I really like Kelsier, and I don't... The funny thing is, I don't like Kelsier because I like his personality. I don't really. He kind of rubs me the wrong way. But I love the fact that he is complete in what he is. Yeah. And there is no room around that.
It's funny that you say that he rubs you the wrong way. This is going to sound weird. He does not rub me the wrong way at all. Like I love everything about Kelsier, and then he talks about like these things that are like super dark and things like that. And I think a little part of me just kind of blocks it out. Like, there's no way he's really like that. and just like move on, like, and just like set it aside.
You just like him that much.
I like him. I'm like, he's not that kind of person. Like, I'm in such denial that like he has this dark side to him that I just love him anyways. Like, I'm like, yeah, he's this guy that always smiles, and he's like, and he's like confident and leading
So
and
one thing that
and saves people even, but I don't like his dark side where he will get violence and do anything he can to prevent like bad things from happening.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
the
yeah.
ends
Yeah.
justify the means is his whole like
his
thing.
whole life motto. But one of the things that Marishi says, and I wanted to get this in, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things that she says is he's brutal but not stern.
Yeah.
Right at the end.
Yep.
She's like, she had always heard that, and she's like, well, I guess that makes sense now. And I think that's absolutely right. Like,
Yep.
he is the one who will, like, swing the executioner's axe. Like, he will do it. He'll do
Yep.
anything he needs to do.
And he'll do it with a smile and like
yeah,
insane
he's
hope.
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But he's always like, this is my goal, and you're either with me or against me, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's very intense, and that's why he's in the role that he's in.
Yeah. So do we want to jump and continue with this Kelsier conversation to the end of the story?
Let's pause for a second, because
Okay.
there are a couple of things leading up to this that I want to talk about. One of which being Wayne's kind of experiences in this last book, which I think are awesome. One of the cut scenes, maybe it's a tangent, only slightly. One of the cut scenes relates to his investment strategy.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought this up. This was one of the best.
This is
Best things.
This is one of my favorite Wayne things of all time.
Yes.
And like for the one part, you find out that he's incredibly rich.
Yeah.
Because he's made these amazing investments.
Yeah.
Where like he just says whatever he's thinking to the accountants, and the accountants he's like, give all my money to people that don't have houses. And so the accountants invested all of his money in like housing projects. And with like the influx of migrants and things like that there was a lot of demand for that or whatever, people in Ellendale.
Yeah.
So he made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And then they go on from there, and they're like, oh, well, he's like, okay, we'll take all that money and have them create a league for noseball. And I'm like,
Yep.
that's going to be a huge success, like massive, because like sports leagues, especially in cities and divisions and these things, are going to be incredibly successful.
This leads to one of my favorite quotes on like explaining why we should have sports and everything. He's like, a bar exists for a reason. He's like, it is a controlled environment in which people drink. People are going to seek to partake in spirits, you see? And it's better for society that we can plan for this. Currently, people are angry. The outer cities, why they are riotous. We must allow them to rage and to be experienced in a similar way to drunkenness, with a controlled outlet with someone for everyone else to dislike.
Yep. So everyone gets to dislike someone vehemently.
Yes.
And
which
there's
is
no
so
reason for it.
hilarious, dude, because that's exactly what sports are, but that's what everyone loves about it. Is it gives you a reason to just like hate the other team and just be like super vehement about it.
And it takes it to a level where you don't have any issues with other players. You know, like you don't hate the individual players. You're like, oh, that's the rival team. You know, we gotta beat them. We gotta beat them this time. And I think it all stems, like the housing projects, the noseball, all the investments, I think stems from the fact that he is the best at knowing people.
Yeah,
no one is
true.
better. His ability to understand people's backgrounds and understand who they are just by whether it's their accents, where they grew up. They do that partially in the investigation, where he puts his hat on and he like knows everything about the guy.
Yep.
He's like, this is what happened. This is where he went. This is where he's going now. We need to find a disreputable paper and let's go there. And that's where the next clue is. And he was totally right.
Yep.
So his ability to go into the shoes of everyone in society, I think, makes a huge impact in why he's successful. And I think it's just a fun thing to write into the story. There are reasons for it later down where we talk about like the epilogues and stuff. But I'm really glad Brandon Sanderson wrote this part in, because it connects so well with what Wayne is good at.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. The whole scene just made me like laugh. He talks about how it's his funeral the whole day, and
yeah, he was so mad. He hated it. He's like, I have to go to this conversation.
Go talk to the dang accountants.
Yeah, and you put on a bowler hat, and he's like, okay,
yeah, it's like,
now we have an accountant.
Yeah, just gets it. I love how the accountants are just like all over it. They just love it. They're just like, okay, like this is what we're gonna do next. You mentioned the part where Wayne puts on the hat in the investigation, is able just to see what the whole room is about and everything and what happened in the story. I love scenes like that. I feel like writers do this often in books. They write moments that is what it feels like to be an author and build a story. And so I wonder, I read this part and I'm like, this has to be what Sanderson feels like. I'm going to build a scene that has like this going on right here, this going on right here, and this going on right here. And what kind of story does this make for a person?
Or if I put on the hat of that person, I go into that person's shoes and mind, what would they do?
Yes. And like that's gotta be like how authors feel when they're constructing a story. Just like, okay, how is this picture painted? And how does it work? And so it feels believable for their characters to fit into that world.
And that's what makes us love the stories. We love the stories because we're like, yes, that's exactly what would happen. I feel that. I can follow that. And I really, like, you're taking that journey with the author. And that's the stories we know and love. All of them follow that same pattern.
For sure. And so I guess what I'm saying here is like, I feel like just reading that, I would assume that authors relate to Wayne in that way more than like we realize, just understanding people and how they work and just interact with their environment.
So really Wayne is truly the character embodiment of an author.
Yeah, not completely, but in just some ways, right?
Yep.
And so I love that. You also see this in other stories too, where you have like the storyteller. Yep. Hoyd feels this a lot, where he like tells this grand story and everything. And I think it's a lot of times just an excuse for the writer to be like, hey, like, I think writers are pretty cool and storytellers are pretty cool. I'm going to put one into a story and show how awesome they are.
So you brought up Hoyd. So you got me started. I have two things.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Two things. First thing is I try to predict things as I go along the book because it's fun.
Yeah, of course.
And I write them down with the timestamps. One of the predictions that I made at the very, very, very beginning of the book is I bet Wayne's mom got this story from Hoyd.
Oh, interesting. That would have been crazy.
And I thought that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
And like she had heard it and like he had told the story to her maybe when she was a kid or something.
Yeah.
And it was like a story that she had brought and it was like it was one of his stories. I thought that would be cool.
I can see it because it influences the Cosmere, right?
Yeah, and he knows it. He knows it. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention about Hoyd is I was thinking about just all the books in general. I'm like, are we not just following Hoyd? All of these series? Like every single time he's involved. So it just kind of feels like either he's involved in everything or we only see the things that he's involved in, which means maybe he is the reason we have all of these stories. Like there's an element of that is a bit of a stretch, I will say. But there's a part where it's like, yeah, Brandon Sanderson wrote all these books, but you also kind of feel like maybe the content of the books in the world of the Cosmere exists because Hoyd is the one tying all the stories together.
Yeah, well, my biggest thought is just more like, it's probably just more straightforward, but just more like he appears at the most important moments in the Cosmere to make sure that he's there either observing or like helping push them in the right direction. And he's like kind of knows when these moments are going to happen. And so our books always take place in the more important moments of the Cosmere.
I think, that makes sense. That's probably more likely, but I kind of like my...
Yeah, and it's kind of like sometimes I watch movies and read stories, and then like something crazy will happen to the main character. I'm like, well, of course something crazy is happening to this character, like, because why wouldn't it? And stuff like, well, actually, like, they wouldn't write a story if like it was just some bland like normal character or whatever.
I'm sure there's a law or a bias written down somewhere that like makes that make sense. It's like it's not the fact that something crazy happens in every book. It's that there's a book because something crazy happened. Yeah, like
exactly.
Wherever that lies. But I think that makes probably more sense.
Yeah.
It's still cool though. It's cool that he's involved in all these different books.
Oh yeah. Love the whole.
He's right there when he needs to be.
Yeah, and this book kind of shows that there is a rift between Hoyd and the Ghostbloods, but it's not like deep though. It seems like they kind of just don't really work together or trust each other.
I think so. Actually, another great point. The Ghostbloods in general and their interaction with Hoyd. Hoyd's been around for a very, very long time. The Ghostbloods are just starting.
Yeah.
So they don't really have much traction. They don't really have much knowledge, and they have almost no power, which is why they talk about that at the end of the book. They're like, we just don't have the strength to go against this and that or the other. We just don't have the ability right now. Obviously, by the time later books come around, we recognize that they've become a lot more powerful as a group. And I wonder if at the beginning, Hoyd was just like, who are these guys? Because Kelsier was a regular mortal guy. And all of a sudden, he like takes on this new persona of immortal being that's running this massive inter-Cosmere.
He's just a new player has entered the arena.
Exactly, a new player.
Yeah, like, whoa.
And that's where I think Hoyd is kind of feeling it out. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, he's been world hopping and doing all these things for so long. He's like, what's one guy with his band of friends trying to do whatever they want to do? Just
totally
let that happen. He lets a lot of things happen. So
Yeah.
maybe that builds, because eventually we know that Hoid and the Ghostbloods are not on close terms.
Yeah, I don't think that they're like bad terms with each other.
I think they're working against each other actively.
Yes, and my theory on why that's happening is because Kelsier and his team is very Scadrial focused.
It's only Scadrial focused.
only
The rest of the
Scadrial.
Cosmere can burn down.
Yep.
And they'd be like, Scadrial is the only thing that matters.
Yep, and Hoid cares about it all.
Yep.
Which is
To the point where Hoid is willing to sacrifice individual planets
Yep.
to save the Cosmere.
He's the opposite.
He's the exact opposite.
Yeah. He's like, I'll make sure everything survives. If yours has to fail, so everything else survives, fine. Like,
So take into account that they've painted the Ghostbloods in a much more of a brutal way, and Hoid in a more whimsical, fun hero sort of a light. But think about the fact that when we dive back into Way of Kings, which we will very soon, that's the exact question that is being answered with whether that's Stormlight or whether that's Kaladin, and the concept of a surgery, Should we amputate the arm to save the body?
Yep.
Is it worth amputating a planet to save the Cosmere?
Yeah.
All of those questions that just have tough answers, and you will naturally have, with just the diversity of thought, diversity of humanity, and all of these beings, a Ghostbloods and a Hoid. You will have two opposing ideas that have very good ideals and morals and just moral codes and intentions in completely opposite directions. And I think that's such an interesting concept.
and things that can be taken so far that they're no longer moral or ethical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are pitfalls on both sides of that argument, but I love that the argument exists,
Of
and I love
course.
that tetension is so real, and you can definitely that's when a villain is written properly, you're like, oh, I kind of get it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I
that's
know
why
that's bad, but I kind of get it.
Like, I see where they're coming from, and that's what makes you love villains like that. Like, it's so cool.
That's what makes you love the story, because you're like, I am invested in this story, because you're not like, oh, the villain's gonna lose in the last 2-3 chapters, and it'll be a nice little denouement wrap up, and it's like not that exciting. But at the end, you're like, I kind of want the villain to kind of succeed, but not completely, because he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like all those little things
Depends on the villain.
They make for an exciting story,
Yeah.
and that's why I think the growth of the Cosmere overall has been leading to that moment, because these two groups are so big and so powerful,
Yeah.
and both believe that they are correct.
Yeah, well, and an example you could give of that is you kind of want the villain to succeed in a way in this moment, is with Telsin trying to prevent autonomy from coming in and destroying Scadrial. And so she's got good intentions, but the way that she's doing it is terrible and like the wrong way of
Yep.
doing things.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens that way every time. Okay, I think then we should jump back though to Wax and Wayne's story. I want to get back to them getting to the tower and like fighting everyone.
We probably do need to wrap this up before we go straight into the epilogue. So
I know.
yeah, it's a good
I know.
call.
Yeah, because the epilogue has some crazy stuff too.
Yeah.
This book was so fun because
Yeah.
it just has so much. Out of I'm going to get more into this at the end, but out of all the other Mistborn Era 2 books, this is the one that just goes the deepest, which is so fun. The other ones are a lot more surface level. This one felt like he was going back to more what he's done in the past with his other books.
Is there a reason for that kind of Sanderson land reason for that? You know a lot more than me about like when these books were written, the context.
I would guess that so the first book he'd written just for fun. He wasn't planning on writing a trilogy at all when he first wrote the first book. And
That's insane to me.
He had
all the things that he built up in that first book, and he was like, "Oh, it's not going to be."
I bet that he went back and edited it so it could be become more of a trilogy. But I think as he was writing it, he was like, "This is just so much fun. Like, I just want to keep going with this."
Yeah.
Then he went and started doing Shadows of Self. Then it kind of stopped halfway through because he had some other projects to work on. Wasn't really feeling it. Finished the Bands of Mourning. Then came back and finished Shadows of Self. Then waited, I think it was 8 years before he did The Lost Metal.
Lucky for us that we're doing this now, because that would have killed me.
Yeah, that's a long time. There was a lot of people who were very excited to see the ending of this series. And so that's where it happened. I think he had a lot more experience under his belt. Kind of had the idea of I can use different characters' points of views, and a lot like I did in Way of Kings.
In those years, he must have collected a lot more Cosmere definitive lore.
Yeah,
because of how much more there is in this book, right? That's probably another reason why we like it so much.
Oh yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So
okay, we can go back into the story.
Yes, it's fun. Before we jump into them going to the tower and everything and destroying it completely, I just want to mention like one of my favorite moments of the book is when Wax and Wayne talk about forgiveness.
Oh yeah,
and how powerful that moment was, because Wayne, this whole book, whole series has had this trouble with forgiving himself.
Yep.
For frankly, the horrible crime that he did, and in killing that girl's father, and he's felt bad about it, and he felt like a terrible person, and he's just never really let it go. And then Wax just straight up tells him like, listen, like you need to let this go. Like that man died like years ago. You are not that same person anymore. And so you don't need to feel bad about it anymore. And I just thought bringing in that context, the way I describe it is not nearly as poetic as it was done in the book and everything. Go back and re-listen to it if you want. But it is a powerful moment to help people who are reading this book and people, and Wayne himself, to realize that you can move on from things. People can change. But it just takes killing your old self and becoming a new person.
Yeah. It's a really, really tricky conversation, which I think is important to have because he's been beating himself up about this forever. But you get to see an interesting side of things where, yes, he needs to move on. Yes, he needs to forgive himself. But it was murder. Mm-hmm. And it affected people's lives tremendously. Mm-hmm. And you see that. And you see that in, like, at least in the epilogues. But you kind of see that as he goes to visit and he goes to make these payments to her. And she has a child and they have a life they're trying to lead. But their lives are forever impacted by Wayne's decision to do that, to commit that crime. So you have the side of like, yes, he needs to get over it. Yes, he needs to forgive himself. Yes, he needs to become this better person. And that, I think, is the key to it, where it's like he can't go back and change anything he's done. He knows that deep down. He cannot undo what's been done. He can't convince someone else to forgive him. But what he can do is become that better person. It's not quite, I think, just the realization of like, yes, I can change. Yes, I can do this. And for Wayne, it's the act of becoming a better person. And like you said, like killing your old self and becoming like a new person, a better person who's not only learned from that, but is trying to actively improve the world that they live in. Because of those things, he's already taken that step. Mm-hmm. He's become a better person. He became a constable. He's trying to improve the world. And now the last thing he needs to do is just say, recognize that you have changed, that you've become a better person, that you are contributing positively to society, and you are on a trajectory to make the world a better place. And the explanation that Wax gives in the book, I think, is the perfect one. He's like, well, as soon as anyone makes a mistake, we should probably just execute them, right? Yeah. And I think that's a good way to explain, because from the side of the lady whose father was killed, you're probably thinking, no, like he can never be forgiven, right? Because that's such a terrible thing. But you also have to realize, yes, people do change. And if there is a glimmer of positive contribution to society in a person, then that life is worth living. And I think that's why Wax is trying to explain that to Wayne. That's why he needs to realize it. Long way of saying that, but I do.
No,
really love
I
that
think
part.
that was really well put. And I just love how Wax puts it too, is just because he's like, that person is dead. He's 6 feet in the ground. He's like all those things. And that's because he has decided to be a different person.
Wax sees it. Yeah.
Yeah. He even asks him like, well, would you do it again? Like, he's like, absolutely not. He's like, well, you're like, see, it's because like you're different. Like you've learned. Yep. And like, that is the key. Cause there are people like, you can say like, yes, like there are some people who like have the opportunity to be forgiven, but they haven't changed at all. And like, those are the people who are like, they're not a different person. Like they haven't killed their old self. Like they're the same being, which is interesting.
I mean, I feel like that's inherently why we have things like prisons.
Yeah, exactly.
An opportunity to change and to come out hopefully different. Yeah. I don't know. That's probably a conversation.
There's a whole other conversation about the prison system and everything.
I do think that concept is like the finality of making mistakes is an important one to talk through, because that's a big part of Wayne's story arc, right? Yeah. That the finality of a bad decision it's not the end of a life.
Yep. All those Wayne moments for me at least, were tearjerkers, man.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time you're reading it, you're just like, oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah. And then he
so
cracks
deep.
a crude joke, and you're like, that guy.
That guy.
What is with this guy?
And Wax and Harmony even just like, not the moment. Not the moment.
Well, at the end, I know Harmony's just like, it's fine. Just say whatever you want.
Seriously. Love it. So they go to the tower after this.
The final battle.
The final battle. And this moment is, for me, at least, a straight callback to the Well of Ascension and a reference to
Oh,
Vin.
yeah.
Did you think this too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is
it's almost the same.
Well, okay, I wonder if you're thinking about a different part. You're talking about the pool with the Well of Ascension?
The battles that they had to go through.
Maybe you're thinking about the same thing as me. Cool. I was wondering, like, is Jaden gonna pick up on this? I think you did. Then it's when Vin goes in and absolutely wrecks everyone in the Well of Ascension. She goes into the castle, destroys over 100 soldiers, like is like absolutely
goes
like
berserk,
ruin. And like this is a complete parallel to like Wax and Vin. And I thought that was a really like cool like callback to that with that moment. Is that the moment you're thinking about?
I'm thinking about that moment, but I'm also thinking about the moments. Maybe it's
more with
near
Marcy?
the end with Marcy. I'm thinking about Marcy is Ellen, basically in that story, in that parallel, because Ellen is in that situation where he's like, I don't have like this massive ability to go do all these things, but what I do know is like we need to burn this, we need to take care of this. This is what needs to happen. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, dude.
So I feel like they were doing the same thing as Vin and Ellen, and just yes, I like the parallel a lot.
Totally. And honestly, I think even before the podcast, you almost compared it to like the Well of Ascension.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The pool of investiture.
Yeah. All those things like I hadn't picked up on either, so I thought that was pretty cool too. There was a lot of cool parallels and throwbacks to the original books, and just like kind of moments are like, hey, this is a big moment. It's a lot similar to this moment. And
does it make you kind of feel like overall the arcs of Mistborn are just a cycle?
I don't know. I didn't
Because
really
think about it. In my mind, it's this way: the Lord Ruler was cycle 1, right?
Uh-huh.
When he was, you're gonna kill me with the name now, but when they were going first to the Well of Ascension,
Yeah.
right, and he took on the power, he became the Lord Ruler, cycle 1.
Yeah.
All the way up to Vin, end of cycle 2, all the way up to Wax, end of cycle 3. Very similar events happen across all 3 of those cycles.
Oh yeah, man. I'm wondering, like, you're kind of talking about the Well of Ascension, like refilling, like each time. I don't know, but
not,
this is like,
not as a physical exact copy, as a cycle of events.
like the same type of deal.
The same type of people are working on the same type of evil plots to control the world, and they use massive amounts of investiture and power to do so. That all pools in one centralized location. I feel like that's a lot of coincidences.
Yeah, yeah. Seriously, I see the pattern there.
So I'm calling it now.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Let's see. You heard it here first.
It's not going to be for 15 years until Ghost Bloods is finished, but I am predicting that the cycle will continue. The 4th cycle will be the Ghost Bloods' massive push to whether it's eradicate evil from Scadrial or something, but there will be a similar setup with similar main characters that need to work against or for a massive pool and collection of investiture that's going to do one big final thing. I'm calling it now.
I could see it.
It's going to happen.
And
honestly, though, the frustrating thing is when Brandon Sanderson watches this podcast, now he's going to write the books and be like, oh, I can't do it the way Jaden said it was going to happen. No, he'll call me, he'll stop by, and he'll say, let's talk through this. And I'll be like, that's fine.
Yeah,
I know nothing, but I'm willing to give this one piece of information.
I love it, man. I love it. I'd be interested to see what theories are right. He says that he doesn't change his book. Like, well, he does sometimes, he said. It's like sometimes he'll change it, sometimes he won't, depending on people get
I bet
things
it's
right.
the reaction, and it's like it probably helps him think about it more.
Yeah.
But it's also, you have so many people who are so invested in in this world, right? The Cosmere. Someone is going to hint at something correctly. Right? Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So even I, at some point, I'm going to come across something that's going to be a spoiler for the future. Yeah. And he's like, he can't change his book every time someone discovers that. Totally. He just has to continue on his way.
Well, fun fact, he did say, he's like, he listens to a lot of theories and everything. He's like, there's one thing that I've always thought was pretty obvious about the Cosmere that nobody has come up with a theory on.
I'm working on it.
I know. I'm
I'll
like,
get
wow,
there.
I can work on the obvious ones. Like, I don't need to.
That's us. We're gonna figure it out.
We will find the obvious ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. It ends. So meets Telson. That part's like fine. I mean, guess he talks with Autonomy. Autonomy's a big deal.
Yeah.
But then the next big scene is him going to the boat. And Wax and Wayne going to the boat. They find out the bomb is there. And then another tearjerker moments when like Wayne throws Wax off of the boat and is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, launch. Like, oh man, like crazy what's happening.
I loved as they were fighting, probably just before that scene. But
yeah, go for it.
I love when they're fighting the copies of themselves.
Oh yeah, dude, we can't miss that. Oh, yeah.
So the fact that they swap, I think, is brilliant, first of all.
Yeah.
But it's also so fun because they're like, that's my chance to really pound into this guy because it's the same basically as fighting Wayne, Wax fighting Wayne, and they just get to experiment with all the things they've been like, yeah, I know I need to do this, I know I need to do this.
Yeah. So Wax and Wayne get in a fight. Who wins?
Wax.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Wax is going to win. But
still fun. I thought about that too afterwards. But I'm like, you could say that the other one wasn't as well trained and everything. And they weren't used to like fighting together as much.
I think, in my mind, Wax has a lot more wit and skill in his fight. But Wayne has a lot more creativity and luck.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're going to have more luck if you're more creative. And Wayne is definitely more creative. Whereas Wax is, I feel like, much more refined and is like more calculated in his strategy. So I feel like that would win out overall if they were in a brawl, and they were, and they both won. So I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that whole scene too. I thought it was just smart and fun. So
well, I mean, technically, Wax did kill both of them.
No, Wayne
the first time.
Wayne killed the one that was like Wax as well because he leached the.
Oh yes, he took
powers out of the air.
He took the flask.
Yeah, took the flask. And leached his power. Oh no, he didn't leech his power.
No, he waited for the Duralaman. Which is a cool metal all on its own.
Yeah, very cool that it was reintroduced.
Which they did use, and then Wayne used all of it in his speed bubble at the end, right? The Duralaman?
You used the Duralaman to
make the speediest speed bubble of all time.
Oh my gosh, he basically like stops, like goes faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? Because everything
goes.
Have to. Everything goes dark. He said
everything was fuzzy. Yeah. He couldn't really see.
Dark, and yeah, he's not able to see, and so he had to burn steel so he could see.
Wild.
Yeah, wild. Even Sazed Harmony like freezes.
Yeah, and Harmony was like, "Brace yourself, because this is gonna be weird."
Yeah, he's like, "This could be wild."
I did love that he was like, "Do you have enough bend alloy for this?" And he's like, "I have a lot of bend alloy."
I love how even like Harmony's surprised. Like, it's like, what does he say? Like
it's 17 pouches.
Yeah, he's like, oh. It's like,
I think that's awesome because he's rich now. I mean, why not have a ton of it?
I know, dude.
It's gonna save your life. I think that's awesome.
Dude,
I do think one storyline before we get to the epilogues that we haven't really talked through is a little, maybe it's a little bit behind the scenes. Maybe it shouldn't be. Is Steris.
Oh man, dude. Steris is this book is the book that makes you love Steris.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you have to say about it?
I just think it's cool that she is taking advantage of the fact that she is not an allomancer. She's not a ferochemist.
Yep.
She's pretty neurotic.
Yep.
But she's like, I need to help. She has full trust in Wax, her husband. He's going to take care of business, what he needs to do. But she's like, I have a job to do. Like, I can do this. And she goes in and she makes it happen. I think that's cool because it's a lot more relatable than someone that flies through the air pushing steel around.
Yep.
But it's one of the things that you're like, okay, yeah, she really nailed it.
Yep.
She was ready for it.
Favorite quote from her in the whole book, like, "Everybody quiet down or else I will throw up on this table."
I'll do it.
I will do it. I have things.
She gets very specific.
I know. And like, everyone just like is dead quiet.
Yeah,
just,
like,
looking like,
everyone
what
was already listening to you. Didn't need to go into quite that much detail.
It was hilarious, dude.
It was very funny.
I love that moment. Yeah. This book also, like, having reread the first books made me like Steris more in the first books, like, having read this one. Yeah. So it was cool how
you understand her more. You like people more the more you learn about them, the more you understand them because they become more human.
Yep. And I love how like her relationship with Wax really works. Like because
It does. It
Yeah,
works
it's-
surprisingly. Oh man. Typically, you'll read like a romance story, and there's always some sort of like love story going on in the background.
Yeah.
I think this is a really cool way because he really threw us for a loop. Because the whole wedding with Steris at the beginning, you're like, oh, he's marrying the wrong person. Like,
Yeah.
it should be Marasi. Like, they get along so well. They're so perfect for each other. And as you learn more about the book, you're like, you know what? That would not have been right. It wouldn't have been the right match.
Yep.
Like, he's perfect with Steris. And, like, the way that they've grown together is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool journey that we as the readers got to go on because I was totally in the other camp after book one. But now it's like, yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm glad I came on that journey. It's awesome to experience.
It's perfect, dude. It's perfect. And you can tell that they really love each other, which is cool.
They do.
He wrote that really well into the book. I love it.
Well done.
Well done, Brandon Sanderson.
Speaking of well done and connecting to everything else, I do have so much to talk about with these epilogues.
Okay, you start. I have thoughts. And I've been waiting to talk with you about this since I finished The Lost Metal the first time a year and a half ago.
Let's dive into it.
Oh
then.
my gosh, dude. Okay, let's hear it. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so there's one more thought I wanted to share. I thought it was really crazy with the bomb explosion.
Okay, we got everyone excited about the epilogues.
I know, but I just have to step back.
Okay.
I thought it was super fascinating with the whole explosion and the comments that they made, the complete references to Oppenheimer and the nuclear bomb.
Really?
Wow. Yes. He says it has a moment where he says, like, I don't know what's going to happen if these things explode. It could light the entire atmosphere on fire. And that was one of the biggest concerns about the first nuclear bomb when the first nuke was made. They're like, well, it could light the whole atmosphere on fire. It started a chain reaction of atoms exploding and hitting into each other and just going bigger and bigger and not... And
We're talking about the atomic bomb?
I'm talking about the atomic bomb. Did
Okay.
you know this?
You're talking about a nuclear bomb.
It's the same thing.
Are they the same thing? I guess I don't know because I feel like nuclear weapons sound different than atomic weapons.
Yep, they're the same. Nuclear bombs and atomic weapons, it's the same thing. Nuclear bombs work because of the atomics inside of them. Like you're splitting atoms and they're shooting at each other.
Well, one of those things is radioactive.
Both of them are. Like when you explode a nuke, it makes it radioactive because it's shooting the neutrons and protons all over the place, and like that's what.
And they're making all the other ions radioactive?
Well, that's
So you're saying the atomic bomb had uranium in it?
yeah, all of them did. Like,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway,
See, you learned something new. This is important.
Yeah.
There's got to be someone else out there that didn't know that like I did.
Yeah, I know.
Let's continue.
Yeah, seriously. But anyways, it was definitely a reference. He says several things that I'm like, this is their moment where they've created the atomic bomb on Scadrial, which is a big moment. Anyway, I just thought it was really cool that he pretty much quoted like Oppenheimer's concerns from like real life. So
Wow.
yeah, really cool. Anyways, now we can go to the epilogue. But
That's pretty interesting. And I learned something. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we stopped.
well, we'll see if you actually learned anything, or if I'm about to get roasted by other commenters and my wife for
I
who
trust
is a scientist.
I trust you.
So
Okay, so first epilogue that blew my mind. Marasi declines to join the Ghost Bloods.
oh yes, and
Now-
is not killed for it, which is great.
And is not killed. That is good.
Yeah.
We all appreciate that. So my question to you is this. Is that because of who Marasi is, or is that because of who the Ghost Bloods are? Or a little bit of both?
Ooh, that is a deep question. What do you think?
I think, first of all, I think it's because of who Marasi is.
Yeah.
I think the Ghost Bloods are still defining themselves. I think the reason for that is Marasi recognizes that her place is to make her own decisions, and she's learned that over the course of 4 books, where oftentimes she's living in the shadow of some hero, which is not unlike Kelsier, the survivor of Hathsin and all these things, where she's like, you know what, living underneath that and working underneath that in secrecy and doubt and confusion, that's not the way I want to do things. She's learned more about herself. She's not going to blindly follow. And I think that is a great character moment for her. Because you think about the first book, she just wanted to work with and close to Wax. She was hired at the precinct because she knew Wax. Like all these things where she just kind of gets carried into these bigger groups and bigger organizations. She finally becomes an entity unto herself. And then she's invited to join this other new big organization that has one leader and everyone has... And there are secrets involved and deception and all that stuff. And she's like, you know what? I'm not interested. That's not who I am. That's not what I want to be a part of. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she made that decision. But it's also very interesting to see how they react to it and all that stuff. They're like, I was sure she was going to join.
Yeah, dude.
But-
I have mixed feelings on her not joining. For me, it was more just it's such a condemning moment of the Ghost Bloods and who they are. And that really bothered me because I really I know how they feel in the Stormlight Archive books. They're super sketch.
Oh yeah,
those books.
You're basically like, these people are evil.
Yeah, they're bad people. But then and I'm like, yeah, I could see how they have some questionable decisions in this book and everything. But I'm like, they need someone like Marasi to come in and help them out and start getting in the right direction, which I thought would have been cool. And then I also just was I just again don't want to accept that Kelsier is running an organization that is shady.
So you see this as a turning point for the Ghost Bloods? Because obviously they're just starting, so she would have been pretty high up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a turning point. It's more of just me being in denial. Just it's a moment of okay, maybe they are a little bit more sketch than I thought. But
they also call themselves the Ghost Bloods. I mean, that's not a great start for an upstanding organization.
Yeah, now you say it though, Kelsier's a ghost. Maybe that's why it's the Ghost Bloods.
Blood with hemalurgy. What are they?
Could be.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Well, he is a ghost with blood.
The person with the mask though. Did you catch this? So when we were reading the Stormlight Archive,
they made it sound like the mask was attached to his face now because he's been wearing it for so long.
Yeah, when we were reading the Stormlight Archive, they were saying my sister that's on Roshar. That person with the mask says it's directly related. That's the person. Yeah, it has to be
from the lair on Roshar.
I didn't even know it was that person until I reread this. So
isn't that much later though?
I don't know. We don't know the timeline yet. Sanderson said though that he will have a timeline released after the 5th Stormlight book is done.
That will be a very, very fun podcast episode to go through the timeline.
Dude, can you imagine? That'd be so cool.
I'm excited for that. So that was the first epilogue that I was intrigued by.
Yeah, and you see Kelsier. What do you think about Kelsier though? Now that he has a spike rammed through his eye.
Kind of creepy.
Yeah, kind of creepy. Be honest. Makes me like Kelsier a little bit less. I don't know if I could be friends with someone with a spike in their eye.
He just really wanted to come back to the physical world, but it does grant him an air of mystery.
It makes me feel a little bit more like the same way how I feel about Marsh.
He's a pirate now. He's an evil pirate.
He's an evil pirate. Well, just whenever I see Marsh, I'm like, Marsh was cool, but now he's a little bit creepy. He's all death now, and he's the Grim Reaper, which is crazy. Which we didn't talk about that scene, but the whole
really
thing where
leans
he's
into it.
Smashes the gun in between.
He's lots of practice.
And he goes in and freaks everyone out, and then he gets down. He's like, that was exhausting.
I love that. He's like, whew, hope that worked.
Yeah, seriously, I love Marsh, dude. I love.
Seems pretty awesome.
Around. Yeah. But yeah, dude, I think it's crazy seeing Kelsier like that. And it's crazy that he's able to have a physical presence now from that. So
is that his old body that they went and got?
I don't know. I was thinking about that too.
With a spike.
How does this work?
Not cool.
Not cool?
Because it's
his.
Hundreds of years. So.
Yeah, I don't know if
maybe they got a skybreaker in there to reverse the decay.
I don't know. Does Skybreakers do reversive decay? That's what it is. You would know because you are a Skybreaker.
I would know. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm just waiting to find uses for this power.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's hilarious. Well, it's I thought that was interesting with the spike in his eye, and then also I just was trying to think about he talked about in the book. He's like, I'm over water right now. I'm traveling to Bilming right now and Elendel, and I can't really do anything. Because I couldn't steel push there that fast is kind of what he implied, right?
You can't steel push over water.
Yeah, but then at the end of the book, when he's talking to Sazed, it sounds like he can't do that anyways right now. He hasn't found a way to get his powers back. He's because Sazed pretty much tells him you couldn't use Lerasium anyways to get your powers back.
That's
so is he lying to
either
Mercy at the moment?
Either that or he was with someone that could have carried him.
Yeah, true.
I didn't really think through it that much.
Yeah,
though.
I don't know. I was kind of I'm like, wow, he has Mistborn powers. Then I read that last part. I'm like, oh, it doesn't sound like he has his powers.
I mean, if he had Mistborn powers, I think things would be very different.
I know.
Very interesting.
Yeah, super interesting.
He will definitely get his powers back, though. If anyone is going to figure out a way,
I know.
Going to be him. I feel like that's going to be his first priority of his whole organization, just to get him his powers back.
Yeah, well, seriously, which leads to my next thought on the epilogues. So you've got the whole conversation with him and Harmony.
Yep, I love that.
This is a fascinating conversation.
They're really getting into it.
Yeah. Okay. What did you think? What were your first
I
thoughts on that?
thought it was interesting when Sazed first becomes Harmony, and they're like, this makes the most sense. Like, he's the most balanced and fair, and he's gonna do a great job. And I think Kelsier's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yep.
Like, how are you not more focused on keeping this planet intact? Like, I need you to be more focused. Like, I'm still here, and I'm not a god.
Yep.
Like, I'm working on this problem.
Yeah. Like, why are you not helping?
Why aren't you contributing to this? Like, you need to be putting every effort you have into this.
Yep.
And I think he just feels frustrated with Sazed. And he's just like, I know you're supposed to be fair and balanced, but come on. Like, the planet is going to explode. And you where were you?
Yep.
I think he's very, very frustrated.
So tell me what you think about this.
Okay. I'm ready.
Harmony suspect to you now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you were
I don't
after
know
that
if
conversation?
I don't know if it's intentional. So my first thought was
Yes.
that Harmony has been compromised and Harmony doesn't know it.
Yep. Compromised by ruin. You're like, did you put that far together?
I didn't actually.
Yeah.
My original thought, and I like your thought,
Yeah.
but my original thought was that Harmony was in such a state of regret for having handicapped his own people by giving them everything
yeah.
they needed, that he was like, I need to step away, and he felt compelled to that. I'm kind of harking back to like the story of Sazed when he was a mortal. Maybe not human. I don't know really.
Terraceman.
And he would go and he would limit himself severely because duty was so much more important to him. Like,
Yep.
he would limit anything that he could possibly do because that wasn't what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So now, having messed up the development of his people by giving them all this stuff or making everything so close together, making the climate so nice, he's like, I must swear myself to not be involved. And so as autonomy came and like as all these calamities started happening, he was just like, I can't do this. Like, I'm duty bound to let this play out.
Totally.
And I think that was a huge mistake, but I do think it came from good intentions.
Yeah. I think that's definitely part of it. I think that's a big part of it. The big part of it that I'm starting to like think about more and more, and it like concerns me, is just the comments that are made here and there that ruin was more powerful than preservation in the end. And so why would ruin not have a little bit more influence over Sazed than preservation would? And I think now somebody like, so there's a couple parts I want to go with, places I want to go with this. First of all, Sazed lies. He straight up lies to Kelsier at the end.
He's done it multiple times.
Yeah.
He lied to Wax multiple times.
He did. Well, yes, that's the other side I want to get into it. But first with Kelsier, he straight up asked Kelsier, like Kelsier asked, like, did the experiment work in splitting the metals? And Sazed says no, it did not work.
But it did.
And it did work, which is a big deal because that could have made Mistborn for everyone on the planet.
But Kelsier has to kind of know that because they got the Atium. Kelsier did.
Yes. I this is where I'm like kind of wondering.
And isn't that when he says that the Lerasium isn't going to work for him right then?
He says that all the Lerasium was destroyed in the explosion.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then he says it wouldn't have worked anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked anyway for Kelsier.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. But I just found that fascinating that Harmony has the ability to straight up lie, especially to Kelsier, where he has his like kind of own intentions.
And that's where you're saying it's either Ruin's influence or Harmony.
Yep.
He's just...
Now, this is the other side of it.
Okay.
So I had heard someone mention this, and I look at the books completely differently now. Like,
wow,
from
one
the very,
thing.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Wax has this whole moment with Harmony where he's like you put me through this horrible moment.
Yep.
Where I had to like not only kill my fiance once, but twice.
Yeah.
Do you think that Harmony found joy and pleasure in that?
No.
Because he is part ruin.
No.
And that he set him up for that.
I have to say no. That's terrible.
I think he did. The more I watch it, I'm like, when I reread through this, I'm like, I think that Harmony is both preservation and ruin. He created someone awesome, created Wax, going through all these moments and everything just to crash him back down as Ruin.
Hot take.
Yes.
Wow.
Maybe I shouldn't say that he found joy in that, but I think, like, I wonder if there was a part of him, the Ruin part of him, that, like, finds, like, is looking for the way to destroy, and the preservation is building up. And so he was okay with building something up to crash him back down.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were telling me last time that the longer someone holds a shard, the more it influences them.
Yes.
And we know that Ruin is slightly more powerful. Maybe even just because humans destroy things.
Yep.
I should say mortals. I don't know why I keep saying. I don't think any of these people are humans.
Yeah.
So the mortals destroy and change. Like Ruin is like baked in. You know, preservation is. That's why preservation I think is so weak on Scadrial overall. Is just because it's so difficult to keep things the same.
Yep.
And change is necessary in many cases. So
totally,
I can definitely understand that theory.
Kelsier basically argues this point at the very end of the book, where he's like, "Why didn't you stop them from coming?" He's like, "Why didn't you like
this
stop?
is your job.
This is your job, and you almost let them destroy the planet." He's like, Ruin was more powerful. You are being influenced by Ruin, and I don't know if we can trust you. And like he says this,
I think that is a huge turning point for the Ghostbloods, personally.
Yeah,
I think that is the moment when Kelsier realizes he needs to defend Scadrial, because if he doesn't, it could go away. It could be destroyed.
Yep.
And I think that's big, because I think he was like, "It's because this god is not doing anything. Yeah. I have to take care of this."
Because there's a part of Harmony that is okay with Scadrial being destroyed.
Yep, there is.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. The majority of him, technically, if Ruin's more powerful.
Yeah, which is crazy to say majority, because you usually think, like, well, majority is like 60, like 80%, but no, majority could be like 51%. Like,
yep.
Like, that's crazy.
Just enough to tip the balance.
Oh my gosh, dude. So it just made me, it like sickens me to say that, because like I love Sazed, and like Harmony is cool because he's Sazed and everything, but it makes me wonder like where that's going to go.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and it makes me, my prediction for the Ghostbloods series.
Okay.
I think that Harmony will be split again by the end of that series.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that there will be a big conflict between the Ghostbloods and Harmony. And it will end up in the splitting of the shard again.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
That would be nuts.
That would be nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
I don't know what they do though, because they're so like opposites again, and like Ruin and preservation. But I don't know what that implies. But so maybe it's not possible.
Maybe. Hey,
maybe it's not storytelling possible. But
there will be an explosion.
Yeah. So, anyways, if think about it again, as you think over the next few days, you'll realize like maybe Sazed did want all of that like bad stuff to have happened to him, but also the good, because he's both.
Because he's both. That's why he has to be aloof from everything. Interesting. Yeah. Well, a lot of the epilogues revolve around Wayne from here on out.
Yep.
And how Wayne has influenced so many people with his life and his money at this point. Like I love how he sends random gifts to Wax. Yeah. He's just like, I want all this money to go to random gifts to Wax for the next forever.
Yep. Like putting frogs in his coat pockets.
Yep. I think that is fantastic. It's like, that is such a Wayne thing to do that I love it.
Yes.
He also put a huge amount of money toward this lady's family. He's like,
oh, so cool.
I think that was cool, because he's like, I can't give back a life, but I can definitely make yours easier.
Yep.
And I think it does. Like, you think about the stress she was under, like caring for the child, not having a place to live. And I was like, that's all gone. Like, that's all gone with this money. So I think that's really cool. I wish they had put some sort of stipulation into, like, maybe it's a little bit too detailed into the I wish they put a stipulation like, yes, you have access to all this money, but you're required to retain these 2 accountants, and they will manage the money for the first 18 months. I don't know. Something. Are
you just worried she's going to spend her money into oblivion?
I'm worried something's going to happen. And the money's there's gonna be an issue. Someone's gonna try and take it. Like, her
it's very
whole
nice of you to be concerned about.
I'm very concerned. A lot of people that aren't wealthy, that come into a significant amount of wealth, end up losing it. And I don't want that to happen.
That's true. Like winning the lottery.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So she should be required to retain the existing system that Wayne had in place for at least 18 months, live off the interest. Everything will be changed. 120 million boxings. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
She can live off the interest
I
for
love
a
it,
little
man.
while and get used to the fact that now she's rich.
We'll have to ask Sanderson if there was any
We
kind of
will.
stipulations in that.
I hope there is.
Yeah. For her sake.
I'm sure there is
Very
because
concerned.
those accountants seem to be very careful accountants. I trust them. They seem
Yeah.
like good
They
guys.
seem like good guys. That's hilarious.
Anything else you wanted to cover in the epilogue?
I mean, they made a statue of Wayne with
Yep.
interchangeable hats and quotes, which is perfect for Wayne.
It
Love
sounds exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
One thing I did have a question for you. Maybe we'll end with this question. Is Milan is
Oh.
in Shadesmar,
Yeah.
and she's going to help a bunch of refugee people with red hair. Who are these people?
No idea. It sounds like something that we should know about, but I have no idea.
Okay, there's like refugees in Shadesmar.
Yeah.
It sounds like, and she's going to help guide them. Well, help them. Maybe not guide them because the crocodile person's guiding her.
It just occurred to me though, like the crocodile person.
Just how it was described. As soon as they said reptilian eyes, I was like, "It's a crocodile
It's
person."
a crocodile.
I don't know. In my mind, it was immediate. Like the change in my mental picture was it's not
Yeah.
going back from there.
That's hilarious.
There's
man.
crocodiles in Shadesmar that guide people. That's all I know.
That's gotta be right. Gotta be right. I would say
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I would guess this just came to me now that it has to do something with a shard having destroyed like a planet or like something like that. Because why else would there be refugees?
In Shadesmar, no less.
Yes.
With no place in the physical world. Yeah, I think that's probably what's happening. But she was going out to explore originally. She was being sent out by Harmony to explore Shadesmar as a viable travel, which could lend itself very strongly to your belief that he's involved in the ruin of Scadrial, because he's starting to say like, where can we go? Where can the people go?
Oh yeah,
If this planet
that's true.
gets
Because
destroyed.
the other half of him wants to be preserving.
Preserving the people, but destroying the planet.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it that way.
Pretty
Oh,
interesting.
man. Yeah, he's a little sus, isn't he?
He's getting there.
He's a little
He's
sus.
going off the edge. But as in general with any book that we read, it comes to a point where we must review and rate said book on a scale of 1 to 10, including decimal places, as is the next chapter way.
That's right. That's right. I cannot remember what I've rated the other books.
It's almost better that you can't remember.
I know. So, this book for me is probably an 8.3.
Dang it! Stop doing that.
Is that the same exact rating?
Yes,
Oh
I have
my
it
goodness.
as an 8.3.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
I'm like,
tell me your rating
This book
reason.
for me isn't a. Just look at your phone. Just
No looking.
I'm just kidding. So 8.3 for me. I think this book, definitely recommend book. You have to get through the rest of the books, obviously, but that's not based on my review. It's that you have to read other books to get here, because this is a standalone. Like, this is a book on its own. It's a novel, but I like this book because you're getting way more character development than you were in the previous books. You're getting a lot more deep. You have those deep conversations, those deep stories. You have those awesome moments from the very beginning of the book with Wayne having that huge story with his mom where she's telling him the story, to the conversation with Wayne about repentance and forgiveness and changing, then to the conversation at the very end with all the Cosmere connections with Kelsier and everyone. It gives you everything that you want in a Cosmere book, in a Sanderson book, which is really, really great. I think what brings it down from being a perfect 10 or something like that is that this is still Mistborn Era 2. It doesn't take itself as seriously as some of his other books have, like a Stormlight Archive book or the Mistborn Era 1 book, which I loved for how deep those are on so many different levels, and with all the characters and the topics they discuss. So that's where I would put it.
I like it.
8.3.
I like it. Unfortunately, my rating is also an 8.3. I guess maybe not unfortunate. It makes the average really easy.
Yeah, it's great.
Maybe you're psychic.
Yeah, maybe.
But I have a legitimate 8.3. The reason for that is, okay, a good book, a really solid book that I enjoyed, is going to be somewhere in the 7s. Because it's a yes, I would recommend this book. It has to have certain elements to bump it into an 8s and into the 9s. Not many books have made it into the 9s for me. But I put this as an 8.3 because it definitely exits the 7s because of those deeper conversations and deeper character arcs. And I think not only people living up to their characters, but also kind of pushing the boundaries of like what they can achieve as the people that they are. They weren't given random powers just willy-nilly to just circumvent a challenge or get around something. Like, they failed certain things and succeeded at certain things. It was very much a struggle to get to where they needed to get to, and they had to make sacrifices along the way, which I think is important in any hero story.
Yeah.
If you have a hero story where they don't have to make any sacrifice and they just cruise on to the end, it's just not as exciting. So they made sacrifices, and there was the ultimate sacrifice for Wayne, right?
Yep.
That was a big deal for me. The story was great. The reason it's not in the higher 8s for me is there was a little bit too much repetitiveness with that, like I was saying. Like, investigate, go to the lair, beat the bad guys, learn something. Investigate, go to the... Like, yeah. That happened too many times for me. And any time that I'm, like, taken out of a story... It's the same thing with like a TV show that we watch. Anytime where I'm like, ooh, that was not great acting.
Yeah.
Like anytime that just takes me out of the magic of a story and I'm reading and I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That is every single time that's going to lose a couple of points. Because it's not as fun, and it's harder to go back and click play the next time on audiobook, or it's harder to go and crack the book again to read more when you're like, last time, are they going to do the same thing again? Like it doesn't lead you to the next page. So overall it does. That was a little bit too much for me. But I still think it's a very solid 8.3, which is a well into the recommend category.
Great. So last question for you then.
Okay, I'm ready.
What did you think about the series overall of Mistborn Era 2 compared
On a scale
to
of
the
1 to 10?
You don't have to rate it if
I was
going
going
to
say, I don't know if it would be very good for a scale. But
but just kind of like overall feeling of Mistborn Era 2 compared to the other writings Sanderson's done.
I think...
Or other books, whatever you want. But
personally, I would rate Mistborn Era 1 higher.
Of course.
Than Mistborn Era 2. You say of course, but I mean, I had to think about that.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought it was close? I love Mistborn Era 1.
I mean, Mistborn Era 1 definitely takes the cake, but you would hope that Mistborn Era 2 takes it into the future and continues to evolve and improve upon it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it did.
Yeah.
I think Mistborn Era 1, the characters they had, like the nuance, I think it was awesome. It was only 3 books, and I think we still learned more and had more story and more characters and all that in Mistborn Era 1. So
yeah,
I like Mistborn Era 1 more. I liked Way of Kings more than all these things.
Yep.
But I do think it was well worth the time we put into it, which was a lot of time. So you got to think. Like, there are some books that I've read, and I'm like, I'm on the fence. So whether that was worth it. It was entertaining, but this was well worth the time.
Good. Yeah, I would say I feel about the same with Mistborn Era 2. I take it with what it started as. It started as a side story for Brandon Sanderson. And I think that the whole
it's a
era
great frame, yeah,
was kind of based off of that side story. It was only ever meant to be that much and just kind of be a fun thing. I don't think it was ever meant to be like deep. And so if I take it like that, then I'm happy with it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it even comes close to a Mistborn Era 1. That being said, though, with him planning on Mistborn Era 3 and like...
We're expecting big things.
Yeah, and he knows it's going to be a trilogy from before he starts writing it. I am expecting it to be as good as Mistborn Era 1, if not better. That is my standard for that one. And I will be disappointed if it's not.
It needs to be.
Yes.
There is a lot more planning that goes into this. And you don't want to be disappointed in something that has been led on for that long.
Yeah.
It's like no one was thinking, oh, I'm so excited to read, Mistborn Era 2, Book 2 before it was written, because it just wasn't really going to be a thing.
Yeah.
There was not that expectation. But here, we're thinking for 10, 12 years, we're going to be sitting waiting for these books to come out. They better be pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it'll be cool, too, because he's going to write all 3 of them before he releases the first one. So he'll write through all 3 and then come back and release the first one.
That's an interesting way to do it for sure. But I am so excited. As always, we're excited for the new books to come out. We're excited to continue to review them, talk about them. If you have any recommendations of books that you think we should read next, or you have a guess of what specific book we're reading next in our podcast, please leave in the comment section. We'll let you know if you're correct. And if you're not subscribed already, that's something you just need to do. You got this far in the video. It's just the next step. It's the next logical step to take. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one.